Good morning, welcome back to Morning at 10 TV. My name is Malaki Vilaodara, and today we're talking about the big question that has been, being discussed by me and you. And the question is taxation. So how do we understand taxations? Not just for us as the citizens, but also as the government. And in studios to talk more about that is Ian Mutibwa, who is the head of tax. He is a tax expert from Signum Advocates. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mala.
Let's talk about taxes. Let's begin with the 1st of July, when the taxes were effected. And most of us, especially us as citizens, we went up in arms. Mobile money agents, every single person was against this. Do you feel like the government took enough time to understand this before this was implemented?
Thank you very much, and thank you, viewers. I think the taxes were rushed. And what shows that they were rushed is that they have been taken back to cabinet, they've been discussed, and a new amendment is coming up. Now imagine a situation where we have an amendment after an amendment, about less than a month after an amendment.
Right.
So it clearly shows you that there was a rush in introducing these taxes. They didn't properly understand the market. And when they went back, I hope they have done better deliberations this time to have an understanding on how to effect these taxes. So it's clear that the taxes were not actually clearly thought about and brought to the market after careful search.
Let's talk about the mobile money taxation that everyone is against. Okay, fine, we have a whole list of other taxations that are there, but this is what is affecting every single person. Initially, mobile money was initiated just to have that financial inclusivity for every single person, regardless of your financial standing. And so even my Jaja in the village was able to save up a little bit of money, on mobile money. And so when this came into play, it was 1%. And now the discussion is about having 0.5% on withdrawals. What do you think were the parameters that the government, looked into when they were coming up with that particular rate?
What exactly is the one?
Let's start with the 1% and then go to the 0.5, and what exactly they looked into just to bring it down to 0.5, and why it's at 0.5 and not at maybe 0.2 or nothing.
Well, I cannot look into the mind of government, because that's a preserve of the cabinet when they're discussing that. But I would start from the fact that they started up with the 1% mobile money tax on 1st of July. That 1%, in my opinion, and I've given a myriad of thought on it and also written extensively on it, is that it was not, it violated very many principles of tax. It was a triple taxation on the same income.
When you say triple taxation, what does that mean? Triple
taxation means that you're taxing the same income more than once. And that violates very many tax principles, per se. Now, you realize that when you deposited, you're taxed. When you withdrew, you're taxed. When you sent, you're taxed. So you find that if you send 1 million shillings, for example, it will be taxed almost 3 times.
Right.
And that one was against various principles. Now, the government has come out and said, let us now tax at 0.5% on withdrawals. Whether that will have an effect on the economy is a question of time, because I, for one, think mobile money business has helped to run the economy effectively. You have over 20 million mobile money accounts.
Right.
So the mobile money business is very big. What people need to understand is the government also needs to make the money. So they're saying this big economy going untaxed, and they're saying how can we tap into that particular wide economy. So their thought is, can we have at least a tax on the withdrawals? How that will affect the economy, I think it's a question of time. What government needs to understand that however well-intentioned you have a tax, you need to look at the behavior of the people you're taxing. So if the behavior is negative, you're not going to collect as much as you thought you'd collect. The first day that the tax was introduced, almost a quarter of people stopped using mobile money.
Right.
I think by now almost half of the people who are using mobile money have stopped using mobile money. So what's the behavior of the people when you actually tax? Would you achieve what you want to achieve, or it will have a negative impact? If it has a negative impact, then you need to go back to the drawing board and rethink.
Let's look at the rates. Ideally, what should happen when an entity sits down to say that now we're introducing taxes? What ideally should they put into perspective to decide that these taxes will be at this rate and not at this rate?
Now tax rates are very interesting, and what you need to understand is that if a tax cannot go up, it should go out. What that means is that you can increase taxes to a particular level. Right now, pay-as-you-earn taxes are about 40%. if you put it to 60, 70%, then you know you're going to kill an economy. So the economics of the tax has to come in as well. Does it make economic sense? Don't keep rising and rising and rising and rising. At one point, you have to actually expand the tax base. Now, when the new taxes came in and the 1%, the 0.5%, those are figures that have been thought about in economics. I'm not an economist, so I think it's an economics equation. But what government is trying to do is widen the tax base.
Right.
And say, can we tax as many people as possible, as opposed to increasing and taxing a few people who are in formal employment. So right now they're looking at expanding the tax base. The figures, whether it's supposed to be 0.5% or 2% or 1.1%, I can't really make a comment on that because that's a preserve of economics.
In your opinion, now that this has, yourself, you've said that now we have over half of mobile money users not using mobile money anymore because we all feel like, why should I use it and yet have these deductions be made on my hard-earned money? So the question would be, if it was a graduated kind of scale, would it be more favorable?
Well, it looks at how you want to actually enforce it. I've argued that if you do on an ad valorem rate where you say, depending on the amount you're withdrawing, then you have a certain percentage. But the enforcement of that also becomes difficult. And tax should not be hard to collect. The cost of collecting tax also has to be put into consideration.
But for example, I'll just put an example here. The telecoms have been able to execute that seamlessly, perfectly well. Today, if you're to send 0 to, let's say, X amount of money, then your sending charges will be just based on that amount of money, that bracket that you're sending. If the more you send, the more you will pay on the sending, cost. So, isn't that, can't they just figure out a way to also do that on the taxes?
That's the thing. It has a lot to do with technological infrastructure. So you're asking the telcos to reinvest in their infrastructure to be able to accommodate that particular gradual taxation. Okay. And remember, this is not a charge that goes to the telco. This is a charge that has to be remitted to the URA, probably on a daily, monthly, or annual basis. So to amend that infrastructure to accommodate that may be costing lots of money. So I for one think that whereas it's possible to have that graduated system, it may not be as easy as let's do it tomorrow. It takes time. It takes time. It takes time.
But it's doable.
It's doable.
It's doable.
Definitely.
Okay,
doable.
Government, it's doable. Because I'm thinking that's the only way then we can be fair to the low-income earners, the people who are down there that just rely on mobile money, to have that kind of financial inclusivity for them to be able to, transact without having to have cash in their hands. So that's very key. And thank you for bringing that out, that it is possible to have that in place. Let's go down to the tax principles. When an entity or a government wants to tax its people, what are the key, factors that they should not miss out on in terms of tax principles, tax laws? What do you think that the government has not really checked into to ensure that they're on the right side of law?
Yeah, as I said earlier, is that the tax is either going up or going out. Okay, I think the government has learned that tax cannot go up anymore in Uganda. The corporation income tax is high, the pay-as-you-earn rate is high, withholding tax rate is high, VAT is 18%. It's already high. So they're saying, how can we now expand out? All right. Now, if you're looking at expanding out, they're looking at increasing the tax base.
Right.
Now, government needs to learn, and this is a very, very important principle. Government needs to learn that a taxpayer is a client and not a thief to be caught. Now, most governments will treat a taxpayer as a thief to be caught. And if you try to say that this person is a thief and I want to catch them, they're going to evolve, they're going to hide, they're going to look for ways of actually having this particular tax evaded. But if you treat them as a client and you service them as a client, then they're going to be more receptive to what you're doing. So the first thing that government needs to do is to treat the taxpayers as clients. Don't kill the taxpayer. Because if you close down one company that employs 100 people, you have 100 people who cannot pay or buy bread. That means VAT is actually also affected. You've affected corporation income tax. You've affected pay-as-you-earn. You also affected VAT because you don't have purchasing power. So government needs to look at that particular respect of treating the taxpayers as clients. If a taxpayer comes and has a problem, don't say, okay, I've seen this problem, let me dig up more. You're treating them as a thief. And although taxpayers are not willing clients, people don't like paying tax. That's just the truth. But they have to be treated as clients.
Yes.
And that's a first way of I think government needs to look at these things. I've seen a lot of tax incentives coming up in the laws. I have my reservation on tax incentives, whether they actually contribute to foreign direct investment. I think what we need to look out for is what our comparative advantage is as Uganda. What do we offer that other people are not offering? A tax incentive may be one of those things, but it is not the only thing. You could have as low as 0% for corporation income tax, or no tax at all, and you don't have as much foreign direct investment as you thought you would have. Because the environment that people are operating in, the infrastructure, the roads, the networks of transporting their goods, and the technological infrastructure is not there. So someone will not come to Uganda because they do not feel their business will grow in Uganda.
Yeah.
So the tax incentives are there, but they should be accompanied by economic development and positive economic development to actually attract FDI. How I would do it if I was a part of the government is probably to have a gradual tax system where you say if someone is earning this amount of money and in corporation income tax could pay, let's say 5%, and if you're not reaching that threshold, say $100 billion investment,
Yes.
you could pay 30%. So you have that particular difference. You're not paying zero tax, you're paying some tax. And that way the government runs as
You're
well.
paying some tax. Before we get into that, yesterday we saw the NRM caucus having
Yes.
a meeting with the president.
Yes.
And let's just play back what exactly happened, because this is now a directive that will take force very soon. Let's listen in.
All members of parliament of the NRM caucus resolved to reduce the mobile money tax to 0.5% and only at withdrawal. That was a resolution that was made by the caucus because the tax was affecting the general public, and that is how we resolved and has been reduced. And we're going to bring this tomorrow in parliament and support this in parliament, ensure that the mobile money tax is reduced from the 1% to 0.5%. Clear stance. Social media does not affect the local person, and it does not affect the majority. You use it when you can afford. Then two, we have excluded people who are doing research and who are studying on social media.
So that is what was decided upon, and so it's here to stay. 0.5% on withdrawal. And remember, the government still has a target with regards to what they're supposed to collect via this space. Now, yesterday we had David Bahati from the Finance Ministry say that they have already collected around 5 to 7 billion shillings out of, since 1st of July, out of the mobile money taxations that people have been paying throughout. Now, do you feel with now that reduction to 0.5% that they will still be able to achieve their target of collection? Two, does it have to still remain at 0.5%, or do we just do away with this taxation once and for all? What effects will it have on the economy?
Well, do we have to do away with it? Will it achieve the target? I, for one, think, and this is a personal opinion, that mobile money businesses run this economy.
Right.
The banks themselves or financial institutions use mobile money technology as part of their fintech. So even you as a bank, you're conveniently transacting on your phone from your bank account on your mobile phone. That's mobile money technology. So I feel with a tax on mobile money, people are going to draw back. And what government needs to understand is that whenever you're taxing, look at the behavior of the people. And when the behavior, if the behavior is affected by what you tax, I'll give you an example. If you have alcohol, for example,
right.
beer and tobacco, these are what we call goods that have inelastic demand. However much the prices go up, people will still continue to buy them. So it doesn't matter if you charge beer another 10,000 shillings in tax. People will still buy the beer. They will never complain that the beer has been increased, the excise duty, and it increases every single year.
Right.
A slight increase in mobile money creates an uproar in the country. People are saying, look, this is too much for us. That shows that the taxes of the mobile money, even the 0.5%, may not be easily welcomed by the society.
Right.
How do we now devise ways and means to tax this rather booming business and make sure that the government gets a fair share of the tax. And what the citizens also need to understand is that the tax is here to say it's what drives the government. So they have to tax and get the money. We shall talk about issues of tax accountability after that.
Yes.
But your question is should we have this tax and will it achieve the target? I think it may not achieve the target because people will rebel against it because they have not appreciated or have not understood where it's coming from. And if people rebel against it, you're going to have a drop in transactions. And if you have a drop in transactions, the economy is going to be affected.
Right.
So ultimately, I for one think that even the 0.5% may have a negative impact on the economy.
Wow. Wow, a negative impact on the economy. And like you said, mobile money agents will be directly affected because that will bring down, the number of people who will be transacting, and these people just rely entirely on commissions that they pay per transaction. Okay, let's move on to the issue to do with, and you alluded to this initially, what other options are there? Like you said, we need to tax, investors, and maybe it can be gradual, but ensure that the FDIs are also, the foreign direct investments are also, taxed as well. Over and above that, do we have other options that maybe the government could look into with regards to taxations? Because like you said, they need to widen the tax base. We have a great deficit in the 2018-2019 budget. So what options do they have?
Well, the options are, one, I think the Ugandan public, and this comes from the way that react in social media tax. That reaction shows you that the public is not used to paying tax. They're not used to paying the direct tax. That's what the reaction shows me. And most people have rebelled from paying the tax because they do not know where the tax is going. And that drives into what we call tax accountability.
Right.
Should the government account to the people? In my small economics that I know that tax is what we call a non-quid pro quo. Non-quid pro quo means you pay it without expecting something. Quid pro quo means I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Non-quid pro quo is I'm giving you, but you don't expect anything in return. But is that the case? And I think it shouldn't be. The obligation of government, what I think government should do is they need to collect the tax, but also show the masses where the tax is going. Because most of the people are on, for example, VPN. VPN is more expensive than 200 shillings you're talking about. But why are they going to VPN and not paying the tax?
Rebellion? It's
because they don't see, they don't feel the need to actually invest their money in the government, because the government has not given them the need to actually invest in it. So I think the first thing that the government needs to do, and I hope that policymakers listen to this, is have what we call tax accountability. Let us show people that the tax that you're paying is going here. Let us show people that however much you pay this tax, this is where it's actually going to go, and it's going to benefit the local person. So that's one of the ways I think the tax base can be increased, because people want to pay tax, but they don't know where the tax is going to be used in the right way. The other thing that I think would help in increasing the tax base is a tax amnesty. Now, tax amnesty is very, very interesting, because amnesty basically means I've pardoned you. You should be convicted, you should be charged with this, but I have forgiven you. There was an amnesty that came up a few, I think probably about 15, 20 years ago. And that amnesty was in the era of the manual system. So not many people actually know about it. I'm sure you also don't know that there's a tax amnesty that happened many years ago. There's also one that happened this year for VAT between January and March. I don't know if you know about it.
That's when I know.
So there's a sort of amnesty. But what the tax amnesty would do is, many people want to pay tax now because they want to grow their business, they want to service better clients, and people are asking for tax clearance certificates and things like that. But they cannot do that because they have a backlog of taxes. If I expose myself to the URA, for example, they will say, can you show us your taxes 10 years ago?
Right.
And if you told 10 years ago, I'll close business. So they will not actually come into the bracket. They will stay, they'll have what we call a shadow economy. If you give a tax amnesty and say, effective this particular date, everything that has happened behind is forgiven, as long as you register on the e-system and you declare your business, and you declare your operations, you declare your returns. Everything will be forgiven. I can assure you, government may lose billions because they have not collected that particular back revenue, but they will earn trillions in taxes moving forward.
And out of behavior, because you said it's a behavior thing, do you think that will work?
Yes.
Because if today I'm given that tax amnesty, moving forward, I think I'll be operating in limbo, just hoping that it happens again. Don't you think it will have an effect that way?
The beauty is right now we have what we call the digital economy.
Okay.
The manual economy or the what I call the
had
primitive
loopholes.
economy. It has
Right,
loopholes.
yeah.
People had to be literate. People had to read. People had to you had to do something manual. People had to go out into the villages. It was a little bit of extensive. With the digital economy, as you've seen in social media, all you need is to do a small, they call it a GIF, and you send it round. And I can assure you reach over 50 million people in Uganda.
Yes.
And the world.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Just a small thing and say, guys, this is what we're doing. Effective this date. If you run a business, if you're an individual, you run a kiosk, whatever you do, this is a loophole for you to actually be forgiven and start afresh. Have a rebirth. Okay? And that one alone, I believe, will bring so many people into the tax bracket. It may not bring everyone, because some people will just naturally rebel, but it will bring people who would rather have been in the bracket and are scared to come in, but now are ready to come into the bracket. And we have a fresh start.
Okay.
And I believe moving forward, government would collect a lot of money from that.
Okay, all right.
And as they've done with the VAT, I'm sure they've collected much more money than they would have thought of collecting.
Right.
The other thing that I think is important is what we call the tax of the economics, or the economics of the tax. As I told you, you have to look at whether tax causes a distortion or encourages people actually to buy. We need to increase, or we need to have an increase in a per capita income. Per capita income is not increased by having more taxes. It's increased by having good economic situations, by encouraging businesses to thrive in Uganda and not killing them. Treat the taxpayer as a client. This is very, very important. Treat the taxpayer as a client, not a thief to be caught.
Okay.
If it's a thief to be caught, the economics of the tax will not add up. If he's a client, he would want to be serviced. He goes to URA and people are helping him do his taxes, they're helping him file his returns and whatever. Everything will now have to come into play. And this economics of the tax can be seen in, do I tax social media?
Yes.
Or do I tax mobile money? What goods are more inclined to be taxed and not cause a ripple effect? As I told you, we have an excise duty. You realize excise duty is what we call a sin tax. The tax experts call it a sin tax.
Yes.
It's taxed on things they don't want people to consume. Sugar, confectionery, sweets and bakery, tobacco, beer. As long as taxes on those things increases, people will still buy them. People will still eat chocolate, people will still drink beer, people will still buy soda, people will still... It has an elastic demand. So every year you can increase them and the ripple effect will not be there.
So they need to tax, to pay more attention into expanding the excise duty tax products that attract that.
But also they need to also pay more attention to the reaction people have on direct tax.
Okay.
When you say social media is going to be paid directly, 200 shillings per day, I'm taking 200 shillings from my pockets and paying that tax. That's a direct tax.
Right.
If it's hidden in airtime or in data, people may not have much of an uproar because people pay VAT every day, but they don't make noise. So the other thing, the way you can do it is have more of the consumption taxes than the direct taxes.
Okay.
That helps to balance the equation.
Right.
And also they reduce their cost of collecting tax. If the cost is high, then the chances that they will come after you as a thief. Okay.
Our current GDP to the current rate of GDP to debt ratio is at 38%. Of course, the government was saying that we are still, safe because we've not met, gotten to the 50% ratio. Do you think borrowing more money, maybe in grants form, is another option?
Government borrowings.
Not pretty much borrowing, but putting the economy at a place whereby it's more enticing for FDIs to come through.
Yes, of course, that's what I started with what they've done in this year's tax amendments is to create incentives for companies that have huge investments, 200 million shillings, $200 million of investment. That alone, my view, will not raise the FDI you require.
Right.
The FDI, people invest in areas where they can bring their staff and know their staff is safe. Bring their staff and know their staff will have the basic requirements. If you have a country where hospital or medical insurance is difficult to get, then even if you have an incentive of 0%, I will not bring 20 employees from a country in the US or whatever to come and invest, to come and stay in Uganda, because I don't feel that is economically viable. I'll have to pay them what they call hardship allowances to come and stay here. So you have to create an environment that is safe, that is thriving, that has almost akin to the things that the developed worlds have, so that you can be able to attract the FDI.
Okay.
Tax alone will not do it.
Tax alone will not do it.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming in studios. Today we're expecting Parliament to table, the Excess Duty Amendment Act. That will be looked into today, and so that will follow closely for you and bring you the updates as they unfold. Thank you for coming in studios. Thank you for the insight. I truly hope that the government is listening, and that maybe they will borrow some of your insight and implement them and make the taxation world easier for me and you to be able to afford. Thank you for being part of this discussion. My name is Malaki Villa-Odera. Morning at 10 TV still continues. We have an exciting show in line for you, so stay tuned.